Welcome to the Art of Adventure. This is episode 211 with Robin Farmanfarmaian. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer, and guide, Derek Loudermilk. Check out the show notes for this episode at derekloudermilk.com. You can also grab your free guide to the top ways to earn money online while traveling the world while you're over there at derekloudermilk.com. And I also suggest that you check out our Adventure Quest trips, adventure trips for entrepreneurs. The next one is coming up in Bali in April. If you haven't been to Bali, then maybe this is the perfect trip. Now let's get into today's guest, Robin Farmanfarmaian, back on the show after 2 years. And she is going to teach us how to become a thought leader. And there is really no one in the world like Robin. She very intentionally set herself up a strategic plan over the last few years to become a thought leader by becoming an international speaker, writing a book, hosting conferences, becoming a donor to the TED conference, making all kinds of network connections and relationships, specifically in the medical device and medical technology world. She now is widely considered one of the preeminent thought leaders in the medical technology space. She's the vice president at several companies, has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. She's speaking all over the world hundreds of times to over 12 countries. She has billionaires in her Rolodex. Very impressive what she's created. And lots of people have been asking her, how did you do it? How did you transform yourself from a normal employee to a thought leader in the industry who can fill an entire auditorium with billionaires and vice presidents of pharmaceutical companies and all of these things? So this is one of the first times she has come on any podcast or talked publicly about her formula for becoming a thought leader. And it's not just saying she's a thought leader. She's also doing the research. She's reading the primary scientific research and journals dozens of hours a week so that she knows exactly what is going on in the newest tech developments. And she'll share a little bit about that with us as well. So Robin is such a remarkable individual. Not only that, she's really fun, high energy individual. So you are going to love her. Here is Robin Farmanfarmaian. Welcome back to the Art of Adventure, and we are here today with Robin Farmanfarmaian. Welcome back to the show. It's been 2 years since you were last on.
Wow, I cannot believe it's already been 2 years since we spoke last. That is incredible.
Yeah, and I feel like it hasn't been as long because you've been super busy and I catch glimpses of little things that you've been up to, but I just learned that you've probably been even busier than I thought. So what has been the biggest differences between the last interview in terms of investing and the businesses that you're involved with?
Sure. So I am a professional speaker, angel investor, and entrepreneur. And I've kind of created this company called Robyn Inc. around myself, where everything I do enables and catalyzes everything else I do. So my angel investments are things like inhaled insulin, a vaccine for herpes, immunotherapies, right? And sleep apnea. And then my day job is I actually work with some of these companies, like the sleep apnea company and the inhaled insulin company. I'm working with them. And I'm, in addition, working with a third company, curing cancer.
Brilliant. And you have and we talked a little bit about this, your personal medical history, I guess, on the last episode. But the point is that you have a personal stake in helping patients. Is that what's driving all of this?
Absolutely. So I actually have a life goal to positively impact a minimum of 100 million patients worldwide. And that is stems essentially from my childhood I was misdiagnosed with an autoimmune disease at the age of 16. By 19, I'd had my entire large intestine taken out. By 26, I'd had over 40 hospitalizations. All told, I've had 43 hospitalizations, 6 major surgeries, and 3 organs removed. And so now I've chosen to dedicate my life to healthcare and really making patients' lives significantly better.
Yeah, and I can't think of anyone that's like you that has, or that I've heard of, that has such a similar background and is sort of doing the role that you're doing, that you sort of created for yourself. It seems like you're very unique at least in the Silicon Valley and the Western world. Or are there other people? Am I wrong?
I think I'm the only person that does what I do. I have not met anyone else who does what I do. I have met very few patients as well who have gotten into healthcare at the level that I have, but also have the background in professional speaking and the best-selling book. So yeah, I'm a very strange abnormality here in Silicon Valley.
Okay, cool. And I'm excited to learn from you about the Robyn Inc. and the strategic development of yourself as a thought leader. And, I know that this was like a multi-year strategic plan. First of all, how did you decide, okay, this is what I need to do?
So about 6 years ago, I was working at a company and I was being crushed by the men. I was being sabotaged. My work was being stolen from me and passed off as somebody's own. My name literally had been deleted from the website multiple times. And I was a full-time employee, but it was full-on sabotage by the men. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. How do I can't fight against this. I lose every time. I can't stick up for myself. I lose every time I stick up for myself. So what is going to allow me to not only drive my business goals, right, and get my career into a place where I want it to be, but will also protect me from these men? And I realized professional speakers. And so I turned myself into one, first and foremost, to protect myself. And it's worked like you would not believe. But secondly, really to drive home all of my business goals. I do very high level business development for companies poised to impact 100 million patients. So this gets me in front of the C-suite of the Fortune 100 companies. It gets me in front of some of the top investors in the world, right? So that's why I do it on my business side.
How did you know that being a speaker was the key?
Well, because first and foremost, it's protection. I watched how all these other speakers that I managed and I worked with, how they got credit, even if they didn't steal it from somebody else. They literally just got credit for doing everything. Oh, this person is responsible for 100% of the business because they were the frontward facing person. So I watched how not only did they seem to be untouchable, they could do whatever they wanted and not have any retributions whatsoever a lot of the time. And I know that was also a culture of that company, but it is also a faction of being a celebrity speaker. So I realized if it's protecting them and giving them a step up in their careers, it can only do good things for mine. It's just getting there is the hard part.
Yeah. And why do you think being a speaker gives you that protection or that level of power, I guess?
Oh, because my brain is out there for people to see. So when you're working inside of a company and say you're one of the hardest workers and you make a massive impact and your work is really critical to that organization, how many people know that? You know it. Maybe if you're lucky, a handful of other people know it. When you write a book or if you get on stage and you talk about innovations and your ideas around things like technology and medicine, right then and there, that's like a top job interview almost, right? So every time I get on stage is another option for me to show the world what I know and what I'm an expert in, so that then you'd want to work with me.
Yeah, and you've been doing a ton of speaking, hundreds of talks probably in the last couple of years. Are you going to keep doing that?
Yes. So not only is it incredibly fun, I absolutely love speaking. That's just one of my top favorite things to do. but it is incredibly impactful into my career. It really has changed the game for me. And writing the book was a massive game changer as well. Now, you have to set up an ecosystem and you have to do a lot of other things in order to turn yourself into a thought leader. But once you're there, the book and the speaking are just so helpful in your career.
Yeah, so you were speaking first and then you wrote the book. What else is part of that ecosystem?
So first and foremost, I actually sat down and I created a formula and essentially a project plan around Robyn Inc. I figured out my goal. I created a life goal of impacting 100 million patients, and I worked backwards from there, just like you would with any normal corporation. So I got my goal there and I said, okay, what's in my skill set in order to help achieve that goal? Because I can't do it on my own. I need to join companies. I want teams around me, and it's not going to be potentially just one company. So how do I make sure that happens? Okay, well, I'm very good at sales, biz dev, getting the message out, professional speaking, all of that kind of stuff. I love to do database, anything to do with getting messaging out. And so he said, okay, well, now I have to choose the types of companies to work with. And I literally just mapped it out. And then I started mapping out, what do I need to do to get on stage to be that professional speaker? And I turned that into essentially a formula by making sure, say, for the first 6 months before I even ever got on stage, I made sure to have 6 or 7 articles published in high-end places like Forbes or Business Insider or industry specific around my particular industry. It was like Becker's Hospital Journal, Wired Inc., right? So what looks best on my resume to be a professional speaker, then get myself on stage, starting with things like moderating and panels and eventually moving into a full-on, major keynote. Right. So, but that over those things alone took about 2 years to set up.
Gotcha. Okay. And so it's important, I think, for people listening to know that this is a multi-year strategy to essentially establish the, so universities, like if they give you a doctorate, like, okay, here's this credibility, but you're basically establishing your credibility by speaking and writing and getting yourself in the right places so that people would associate you with being a thought leader.
Exactly. And making sure you're in the right rooms that are good for that overall image. And understanding you are a company at this point, you are building a brand. So just like a company brand, you need to come up with that elevator pitch. What's that single thing you are famous for? Because if you bifurcate your brand, you're going to drown it out and people aren't going to understand. So everything around my platform up till now has been about patient empowerment, right? The patient as CEO, you know exactly what that means. So you have to build your brand in a very specific way, just like you would build a company brand.
Wow. And did you have anyone that you were modeling after to understand the sequence, or did you deconstruct it all on your own from scratch?
So 2 things. So I did look at, for the entire career overview and the Robyn Inc., I kind of looked at what Peter Diamandis is doing. I worked for him for 3 or 4 years, so I was very close to it. And I understand that he co-founds all these different companies and only does the high-level business development by professionally speaking. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not a physician out of Harvard, and I don't have the amount of money and time that I need to co-found like 6 or 7 companies. He's also about 15 years ahead of me in his career. But what I can do is become VP of business development or an advisor or an investor on these companies and do that exact same thing, the high-level business development, just like what Peter does. And then to turn myself into a professional speaker, I literally just deconstructed it. And I realized, okay, well, I'm going to need help. So I hired a team. I use the either the power of the crowd. So I hire people off things like Upwork, or I have a personal assistance on demand, to bringing on someone to help me with my slides. I hired a $10,000 designer to make my very first slide deck because I was coming out on stage with $10,000 an hour speakers. So my slides had to be the best in the room because I was not the best speaker in the room. So I wanted high-end professional slides. I hired marketing companies. I hired PR companies. I hired companies to help place me in high-end, publications. Because if you're a brand new writer, you're not going to get right into Forbes unless you have somebody help you do that.
So I imagine some listeners would be asking, wow, $10,000 plus investing in all these other people. It's not a inexpensive, bootstrappable proposition for many people. How were you just funding it with the salary you were getting from your employment?
Exactly. I liquidated my savings. I said, okay, I'm going to spend this. And I think overall, just not counting the angel investments, and I can talk a little bit about how that really helps open up doors, and not talk things like TED donorship. So I'm a TED donor, which actually is quite a significant amount of money, but it's opened up some doors that I've made that money back significantly. Because once you become a professional speaker, you can charge $10,000 a talk. Right. So all in, I think over a 3-year period, when I was first launching myself, I spent about $70,000.
Over 3 years?
Over 3 years. So it's doable, right? Because then you have them in small bite-sized things, and you don't have to do everything I did. So I spent $10,000 on that first designer, but that was like really a foundational thing. And I'm using that template. He helped me with like the colors, the story arc, and got everything really templated for me. So that set a foundation for my entire career. So that to me is money well spent. Then my marketing company was $12,500 for 3 months right after my book launched, right? PR company was about $15,000 just for 3 months. And again, it was right after the book launch. And that's the only marketing and PR I did actually. It was about 3 months worth back in 2016. And that's all I needed to really just break through. And that's really cheap. I mean, this is not a lot of money to turn yourself into, I've now spoken in 12 countries, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And you're doing so many different things. Do you have a place where the majority of your income is coming from currently? Is it from speaking?
It is. It depends on the year, because it just totally depends on if I'm helping with an investment raise or I'm doing some big sales. Like I worked at a company where I raised $6.5 million in things like educational packages and sponsorships. So that year I got, I get a bonus on that, which is a percentage of what I raise. So it totally depends on the year. So some years speaking is bringing in more money, and some years my salaries are bringing in more money, and some years my commission bonuses are bringing in more money.
Okay.
It's a risk. It's a very high risk. I'm in a very high risk business and working on very high risk companies because they're early to growth stage startups working on problems to impact 100 million patients. So everything I'm doing around that is actually quite high risk, but I am one of those crazy entrepreneurs in the middle of Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm really curious about, so you do lots of speaking, which you've built this credibility and you're getting in front of the right audiences. But when you want to raise money, how do you personally approach it?
Oh, so first of all, as long as I have already an agreement with the company, I just email my contacts. So because a lot of the investors and the people I work with to raise money, I've known them anywhere from 2 to 8 years, right? And they followed my career, and I have the credibility now with the 6 angel investments and the other types of companies I'm working on. It gives me the credibility to know, okay, Robyn knows what she's talking about in these areas. Let's sit down with one of her startups and it's worth our time. And I can get into an extremely high-end investors that way, where typically there's no way to reach them or no way to get inside of that.
Wow. That's so cool. That's so powerful that you can just call them whenever you want and they
exactly
will meet with you.
And a lot of them are actually billionaires too. I mean, these are but that goes back to the fact that I'm a TED donor and I spend a lot of money in certain areas to make sure that I'm a peer with these certain people, right? So like now as a professional speaker and as a TED donor, I'm their peer and colleague, versus a startup entrepreneur who's working on their first or second company and has spent their life broke and they're trying to desperately raise their Series A. Instead, I'm coming in as one of them and saying, hey, I invested in this company. I think you should take a look.
Was becoming a TED donor, was that strategic?
Oh, yeah. That's because it's $25,000 a year. So that's a ridiculous amount of money for a woman in Silicon Valley, right? Like the cost of living here is incredibly high. So yes, incredibly strategic. So the second year I was a donor, they launched my hardcover book in the TED Gift Cave. All 1,800 of the attendees that year saw not only my book, but a huge stack of about 100 of them that were just displayed, and all of them have my picture on the cover. So all of a sudden, TED is endorsing me as a content expert around medicine. The quote on my book and my book cover is incredibly strategically thought out, because I don't care about book sales. So I made sure my picture was on it. I got it down to that 3 words, patient as CEO. I had the Peter Diamandis quote, he's a physician, on the front saying patients, a must read for patients, right? And so everything about the book told you with just one glance exactly what it is and exactly my area of expertise, right? And then it sat there, and let me tell you, the people who are TED donors who go to this particular conference include Larry and Sergey at Google, Vinod Khosla. We're talking all the billionaires pretty much in Silicon Valley go up to that conference. I meet Google Ventures in there, like all the high-end Alphabet people. It's a very strategic decision.
Yeah. Wow. And so you really, that's so impressive. You're in the right room. You've figured that out. Gosh, did you have anyone helping you with the strategy of this? It was just
me.
You.
Yep. But I mean, I hire people, experts, to give me their opinion. So just like the patient as a CEO in my book and how I run my world of healthcare and that whole foundation, it's the same with Robyn Inc. I am the CEO. If I need expertise, I hire it. I hired 2 different speaker coaches to work with me at $1,500 an hour. Because they were the best of the best, they were high end, and that's all I needed. They recorded me, they gave me exactly what I should be doing, showed me on the video, and then I just memorized it and practiced and practiced and practiced. And I hired them before I ever gave my first talk, and that first talk I ever gave, I practiced 40 times before getting on stage. 40.
Oh, wow. That's super pro. That's amazing.
Yeah. If you want to be a pro, you need to put the effort and time into it. If you're not willing to practice your first talk, which could be a half an hour long, 40 times, I'm telling you, you should be doing it that many times, because then it becomes a natural. I can snap into right now doing a 60-minute keynote without any preparation now because I'm so practiced.
Yeah. Oh, that's got to feel so good
It is so good. It feels so good to be at that point. That flipped for me about a year ago, and I realized that I didn't need to practice talks 5 or 6 times anymore, not even for timing. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. I can now just, someone could say I need a 25-minute talk, and I could put the slide deck together in 10 minutes and get up on stage and give a 25-minute talk.
Are you always using slides?
Most of the time I do, because I do structured talks, and a lot of it is about the technology. So I want to show them pictures, because a picture is 1,000 words. I mean, 10,000 or whatever that there's an expression. Yeah. But the picture.
It's doubling every year.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I like slides, and they also provide hints. So when you're up on stage and say you get distracted, someone's phone is ringing, there's a sneezing attack, right? And you get a little bit distracted. All you need to do is look at your slide and know exactly where you are in that talk. Talks without slides that are structured are incredibly difficult to do. Now, of course, things like this, the QA and moderated QA, that's pretty easy, right? That's just a conversation. But if you want to give that structured talk and get a very specific point across, that takes slides usually.
Gotcha. Okay. The rate at which you are willing to invest, you're making lots of money, you're spending lots of money. I think some people might get stuck in if I invest in a speaker coach, how do I know that won't be throwing away? I think a lot of people get stuck on, the speed at which you may be investing in learning and improving and growing. So was it simply having courage and faith that your investments were going to pay off, or what allows you to make those investments in your career?
So invest in the angel investing I do, or investing in the education?
In the education and the slide deck and things like that.
Oh, because I understand this is a business. I'm building a business called Robyn Inc. right? So I have to figure out what my P&L is. I need to have a profit and loss statement and a budget, because then otherwise it's not a real business. And so I understand also, as a quote unquote business owner, that I'm going to be throwing some money away, right? Just like when you have a big corporation, you hire full-time employees, they're probably only working 40 to 60% of the time, right? That you're actually paying them for. And in addition, if you fire an employee, it costs a significant amount to replace them. So I hire consultants all the time through Upwork or TaskRabbit, or I hire companies like marketing companies and PR companies. And, if they don't work out, I didn't particularly like my marketing company. I don't think they were worth $15,000. I think they were kind of lazy, but it's, I got some value out of it, and I need to understand, okay, this is a corporation. Some money is going to get wasted. Some of my hires are going to be bad. But the really cool thing is that all of my quote unquote hires are very temporary workers. So if they screw up and I don't like them, then, I just move on to the next.
Okay. So it is really about bringing it back to thinking about it like a business. And what I think may be happening is that it separates the ego or the fear of, I'm spending this money personally versus I'm running this as a business, and it's a separate entity in a sense from me. Was that your experience?
Exactly. And not only that, but I even actually call it an LLC. Like, I actually have it with the government here in the United States. It's its own corporation, the patient as CEO platform and all of that. So, and that's a tax structure as well, but that also in my head differentiates this. Oh, this is part of Robin Starbuck LLC, which is my middle name, versus, Robin Farmanfarmaian. And that is an actual business, and I know I need to invest in it. So just, where's the smart money? Make up the budget, figure it out.
Cool. Is there anything that you intentionally, like part of your personal life, where you say, this has to stay separate from Robyn Inc. I don't want to mix certain parts of my life with... No. Everything. I'm a very authentic person. Everything is under that Robyn Inc. umbrella. I don't leave my house unless I am going to be doing something that will further my goal of impacting 100 million patients. And even my social circle, all of them we work with together, even the ones that are totally outside medicine and biotech, we still help each other in each other's careers. Even if they're in econ or something completely outside of what I do, we're still able in different ways to help each other with our careers. So I just make sure to think of my entire life. Everything in my day is all part of Robyn Inc. And I think that maybe a lot of people, first of all, you have a very motivating and clear goal, help 100 million people. And so perhaps people, if they haven't defined such a big, powerful, and personally meaningful goal, then it's hard to work backwards from something that's a little bit more nebulous. Do you think that was the lead domino, so to speak?
It is, but I would say that you can come up with a goal that's in line with what you would like to accomplish. So it doesn't have to be a life goal. It can be a 10-year goal. I want to have $1 million in the bank in 10 years. I mean, it could be something like that. It could be, all right, I want to own my own house free and clear in 5 years, right? It could be a financial goal. That's a personal financial goal, and that is absolutely fine. And that's actually a pretty good thing, because then it's actually monetized right there. Whereas my 100 million patients, it's metricized, but there is no easy to see way how that's going to translate into money. Whereas if you say, okay, well, I want $100,000 in my child's saving account for their college education within 4 years. That's a goal you can work backwards from. Just make it audacious enough and big enough that you need to live up to it, right? And it needs to be exciting, and you need to be passionate enough about it that you want to work on that.
And because you have this goal, like you said, you don't leave your house unless it's impacting the goal. I'm guessing then you're saying no to a lot of opportunities, or maybe fun things like you could go do, but they're not leading you in this particular direction. Do you have to say no a lot?
Oh, any good entrepreneur says no more times than they say yes. And if you're saying yes more times than you're saying no, then kind of look at your life and say, okay, am I bifurcating myself too much? Am I spending too much time in one area of my life that really isn't impactful? So I say no. Well, and I put into the fact that Robyn Inc. does need to take care of the president of Robyn Inc., which is me. So my healthcare and things like that, I leave the house for that and leave the house for mental breaks or what have you, because it is still, you need to take care of the CEO. Yes. But if it's just like my friends are going to a bar, which I know is going to be loud, I say no, absolutely not. Or like all the speakers are going out and I've already been with them for 5 hours, so I've already bonded with them, and they're going to some place where it's difficult to talk. And I'm a chronic disease patient, so it's also hard for me to stay out really late or in deep crowds or if there's a lot of smoke around. So I will just say no, absolutely not. I'm good. I'm going to go back to my room and go to sleep.
Yeah. So it sounds like maintaining your energy levels so that you can, because, just from listening to you, the listener can tell that, right? You're a forceful, energetic, enthusiastic person, and clearly you're mindful of maintaining your energy. And if you're a chronic patient, that's part of it. What other considerations do you think about when it comes to sort of like maintaining your long-term ability to be a energetic high performer?
Oh, so I have made sure to outsource everything in my life. That's not one of the top 5 things that I love. So I don't scrub the bathtub. I don't walk into grocery stores. I get 100% of my stuff delivered. I don't carry anything. I make sure to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. I work out every single day, 365 days a year for about an hour. I make sure to listen to 2 hours a day of music. Like, I really keep both my mental and my behavioral health habits at top notch.
Wow. This is so cool. You're keeping an eye on so many different pieces of the puzzle, which I'm sure is why you've got the opportunities that you have. I'm also wondering about not necessarily imposter syndrome, but it seems like this is all coming quite easily for you. So are there times when you actually feel like you need to be brave or courageous when you're trying something, or?
All the time. Oh my goodness. I have fallen on my face more times than most people have tried. Right? Absolutely. When I have to, especially for the first 50 talks or something, I was very nervous, and I'd have stage fright a little bit. I'd have some anxiety. And if there were people in the audience that were very judgmental, or I'd control over my career in some way, I would get incredibly nervous and start shaking a little bit, right? I'm now completely over that, because all it is it's practice, 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 practice. And you get confident enough that you lose all the stage fright eventually. I didn't know if that would ever happen, but it did about 50 talks ago. So I'm very happy about that. But absolutely, I mean, even just sometimes getting out of bed and leaving the house because I'm so scared about having to go to the ER that day, or I'm really sick, or I'm giving a talk or something, is just, I have to take a deep breath and remind myself that, I'm courageous, and I get up on that stage not feeling well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've said wow more than a dozen times so far. So you were really practicing for these talks and all kinds of, you got to be a really high level speaker. Is there anything that you're practicing right now, or what is the next level of skill that you're trying to acquire that will help Robyn Inc?
So now I'm writing a new book. So I'm doing some research and really wanting to become more of authority on building yourself into a thought leader, purely because it can help so many people. And one of the big ways I live my life is making sure that I am helping somebody else every single day, if not 4 or 5 people every single day. And I call it sending the elevator back down. And that's especially important for women, because it took us crawling up the outside of the building using our nails, right, to get to where we are. It was just so hard that why not send the elevator back down for other people?
I like that.
Yeah.
What are you uncovering in your research for the Thought Leader book project that you hadn't considered before?
I haven't come across anything yet, but I'm at the very early stages. I decided about 2 weeks ago to do this. It's just I'd been asked so many times to speak about it on stage, and I get outreach literally 2 or 3 times a week now to ask to be somebody's mentor around building themselves into a thought leader. But I was like, okay, I should just put this down on paper.
Yeah. So actually, maybe you could help me. I'm realizing that I perhaps need a more clear goal on what type of thought leader I want to become. But I'm sort of doing something similar to what you've done. I've just finished writing my first book. It's coming out. Yeah. So that's called Superconductors. It's about the future of work. It's coming out in July. We've got this podcast, we've celebrated 200 episodes, and I've probably done about 50 speaking engagements since the last time we spoke.
Wow, this is huge.
Yeah, it's great. I'm like, I've got all the pieces of the puzzle, and it seems like it needs to be harnessed and directed towards some mission like this 100-patient goal. I think it sounds very easy to talk about, like people clearly get what that is. Early on, I said, my goal was to become the world's leading expert on adventure. Without, that's still sort of nebulous about the usefulness of it. So, okay, now that you know a little bit about all the stuff that I've been up to, how do you think I could unify it all together? And what else do you think I need to be doing?
So one thing about my platform, The Patient as CEO, is that that's just what I'm famous for, and that's what I'm known about. But I have over 2 hours of canned content for stage across 8 major talks that delve into 8 different areas, from exponential versus linear to corporate innovation, right? So you don't need to necessarily reduce your content versus just pinpoint your message around one foundational idea that you can leverage, right? So with your case, I'd say choose either the future of work or the future, or being an expert in adventure. Now, when you look at that, then look at yourself and say, which one can I monetize? Right? So which one's going to be easier to monetize?
Yeah, more likely the future of work.
Yes, and that one is actually quite a hot topic. I ran a conference about 2 years ago on the future of work for Vint Cerf, and that's a really hot topic right now. So there are a lot of conferences that would want to bring you in, both as a free speaker, but there's a lot of corporations that may want to hire you as a paid speaker. So I'd say that was probably your best bet to suddenly to build your platform to be known for the future of work. And the way you can metricize something like that in terms of my 100 million patients, you can say you want to enable 100 million people to be employed, right? Or something like that. So with the changeover, or it could be 1,000, right? It could be 10,000, enable 10,000 people to find a job in this new economy.
Ooh, let's say fulfilling employment.
Yes. Yep, that kind of thing works too. And then just literally create your platform around, okay, so what are these corporates hiring for? Because you can find out corporations hire speakers for 2 reasons. First and foremost, it's the internal education, right? So they want to educate their employees, their management, their C-suite. So they'll pay you for that. Second reason is for business development purposes. They throw a conference for their potential customers, their existing clients, and they bring you in to align their brand with yours and for you to provide a good time and good, interesting content to the clients that are in the room. So when they get out of the keynote, the employees of the sponsoring company can talk to them and hopefully close a deal, or just keep them continuing to be multi-million-dollar clients. So those are the 2 reasons. So look and see which corporations would hire you, and kind of create a message around that even.
How do you research which corporations would hire you? When you say look and see, what does that mean exactly?
So I would go to HR conferences and literally just stop talking to HR departments of the Fortune 500s or the Fortune 1000s, right? And HR departments have their own conferences, just like CEOs have conferences, just like COOs have conferences. They have HR departments. And go there and strike up some friendships and just talk to as many different companies as you can and say, hey, I'm a professional speaker, and have your story laid out well and say, what kind of conferences are you guys running this year?
And businesses themselves, corporations themselves are running conferences.
Yes, all the time. All the time. I actually used to not only speak for, well, I still do. I speak for them, but I used to run conferences for corporations as well.
Okay,
so like Genentech would hire me, and I would help them run an internal Genentech conference for about 400 of their employees.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
When you are brought in to help close a deal or to help maintain a customer relationship as a speaker, what considerations are there? Like, what is your role besides giving your keynote?
That's it. Usually, well, I mean, I've been hired, so my career is a little bit different because I can be hired for not only a keynote, but to help fill the audience. Because I do very high-level business development for a living, they can hire me to fill the seats with, say, senior vice presidents of pharma companies, right? Something targeted in medicine that I can help them get them in the room. And that would be for, say, like clinical trial software company needs more pharmaceutical companies. So they want the senior vice presidents in the room. And so I can help do that. But if I'm just a straight up professional speaker, which is most people, 99% of speakers, literally I just go in and give my keynote and leave. Sometimes, like someone like me, I like to hang out and talk to the employees or the C-suite, and I sit down at the tables with them and I socialize. But, that's not even usually a requirement unless they ask for it. So I would just say, when you're on stage, make the company who's paying you look good, right? Make sure that you're giving the content that will help them close their deals, right? So like say something that's flattering to them or makes the potential customers in the room happier to be there. But that's it. Like literally just go in and out.
Wow. Yeah. How do you keep track of all of your contacts? I know you said you put people, you're good at putting them in a database and reaching out.
Yep.
What's your system for that?
So most people I try to have on LinkedIn if I've met them personally, and I usually write a little note so I have a clue of when I met them and things like that. And that's a good enough CRM for me most of the time because people are so prolific now on social media. But then for all the other ones that are not on LinkedIn, I have a huge, massive database. And then when I do something with them for an individual company, I keep a spreadsheet on each individual company I'm working with. And I copy paste the name into that particular spreadsheet and literally take notes. So I've created individual CRMs for each of the companies. And I just use Google Docs for it. I love it because I can access it from the cloud and I can use any device for it.
This is so cool. I don't think there is anyone else like you.
No, I don't think so. I have never met.
Wow. What other parts, are there any other parts of the formula for thought leadership that we haven't touched on yet?
So let's see, starting with getting articles placed, then getting yourself to do your first keynote, then getting more articles placed, make sure there's a lot out there. There's ways to hack that. And then write your book, because without writing a book as a thought, you're just not going to get very far as a thought leader. And you can do everything from traditional publishing houses to self-publishing to the hybrids. In fact, Forbes right now will publish business books, and they reached out to me, but I didn't need to write a new book at the time. This was about a year ago. And it's about $150,000. So you pay them, and they do all the marketing and PR for you. And that's the new model in publishing, is that the authors are paying these hybrid companies like Forbes, who have massive credibility, and it's a very high bar to get into their publishing company. But then you're the one who pays them, but you have 100% total control over the messaging of your book. So if you were to go to, say, a big publisher, they have control over your book. And it takes about 2 to 3 years longer.
Yeah. So I'm with a traditional business publisher. And, I know they'll be doing some marketing and promoting of the book. Would you recommend, I know you had a 3 months of a PR firm, would you recommend supplementing, or I guess what would you recommend in terms of using that as leverage?
Yes. So traditional publishing houses are terrible at PR and marketing. They're just really bad at it. That's not one of their main functions. So I would say yes. And make sure that you're targeting the right audience. So clearly have the audience you want to reach mapped out, because that's how you're going to do your Facebook marketing and things like that around people's professions or age. So make sure you understand the audience you want to reach to monetize your particular book. And say, isn't it the PR company that I hired that hooked me up with you, 777?
Originally, yes. I believe they reached out and got you on the show.
So that is, I liked them a lot. So it was only, $15,000 for 3 months, and they really got my name out there. Right. So every little bit helps at that. And if you have the extra money to put aside, I'd say you might not need an actual marketing company. You can probably do a lot of that using their templates, because the publishing company is going to make you a lot of templates on advertising and all that kind of stuff. So you can just hire a personal assistant to do mailings for you if your publishing house isn't doing that. And you can do that for $40 an hour.
Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. This is great. I'm learning so much. I actually would love to hear a little bit, because I know that you keep your pulse on all the new developments in science that's happening in the medical world right now. Actually, I'm wondering, do you ever get fully on top of all the new developments, or...
There's no such thing as, there's something like 10,000 papers published a day.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, AI is the only way you can keep up to date. But what I've done is highly curated the news that I do get through both Google News will curate that. My social media, my Twitter and things like that are all curated around being able to follow things like the Mayo Clinic or the FDA or some of these high-level thought leaders and companies that are doing or thinking about high-level innovation. So, and then just being at conferences almost weekly, that I get to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of big corporations, and literally that is what the conference is about. So I get to hear so much more than the average person, I think.
And what trends have been developing in the last year that you're really interested in?
Oh, so probably VR, AR. That is absolutely already starting to explode, and it's going wireless this year. So VR, it's a big deal because people were so strapped down with the actual headsets. But using virtual reality in medicine. And it's so one of the companies I advise is MindMaze, and they got FDA approval about 9 months ago for virtual reality with stroke and brain injury rehabilitation. This is a $2 billion unicorn, by the way, and Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the investors. So our advisory board meetings are going to be awesome.
Oh, wow. So you get to hang out with all kinds of people.
I don't know. Hopefully one of these days I'll get to meet Leo in person. That'd be cool. We're working on the same company. But we're also seeing VR, especially in things like PTSD for military men, because the vast majority of men who go into the military do have some form of PTSD afterwards. So using virtual reality to retrain the brain is incredibly powerful. We're seeing it more and more in hospitals for things like pain management control. Right? And a lot more augmented reality glasses hitting the market specifically for people who are blind, right? So that the augmented reality is able to, using computer vision, identify objects or read books in the room and literally read out loud. So say you are in the grocery store and you're visually impaired. There are glasses now available where you can pick up the can of soup. It'll read the label for you.
Ooh, I love
out loud. Yeah, exactly. So, so much innovation happening in AR and VR in the world of medicine. It's a really exciting time.
And does that extend to non-medical applications that, your average citizen might be able to access as well?
Oh, absolutely. So the iPhone last year came out with an augmented reality platform. So now if you have an iPhone 6 or above with the new operating system, because it was the iOS system actually that was the big beneficial thing, your iPhone now does pretty good augmented reality. And you can download things like the IKEA app and you can place full-size furniture in your living room using augmented reality. Wayfair, it's another furniture store that's only online. It doesn't even have physical stores. And again, you just you want to buy this blanket, you want to buy this dining room set, you want to buy this couch. You use your phone, and with augmented reality, you can see exactly how it's going to look in your apartment. At CES this year, there was a mirror that was launched. It logs all of your clothes. So it takes photos of your clothes and it knows exactly what you have. And then it helps you get dressed in the morning using augmented reality in your wardrobe.
Wow. It's like a stylist kind of. It helps you.
Essentially. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, and there are makeup companies, tons of makeup companies now. You go and download the L'Oreal makeup app and you can put eyeshadow on using augmented reality. And so you can see, and then you can just click and say buy now, and it gets shipped to your house.
Is there anything that Robyn Inc. is going to be taking advantage of in AR or VR?
Well, beyond mind maze, so I really like the company, so I'm helping with that. So the stroke and brain injury, but not yet. I think I did do an augmented reality video for my book where I just had like objects drop in. It was a very simplistic thing because it was done with a 360 camera at the very beginning about a year ago or so when people were just starting to learn how to use these innovations. So I've done a few videos with that, but maybe some more videos. That might be a good idea, some augmented reality. Good. Thank you for that.
Woohoo. It's, contributed just a little bit.
That's awesome.
Wow. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we mention?
Just you make sure you understand, if you do want to go this route, this is a company and you're going to be investing a significant amount of time, strategy, effort, and money. And don't be scared of that. If you want to be a success, you have to invest in it.
Sounds very easy. Sounds simple, not easy. Nothing worth having is easy, right? Great. Robyn, wow, I want to just acknowledge you for a second for being so inspiring. I love that you are so fully committed to what you're doing and helping patients, and it's really great to have someone like you to model after, and who's come up with a formula and an understanding. I think it's really going to help a lot of listeners. It's definitely helped me. So thanks for breaking it down for us. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me again on the show.
My pleasure. And what's the best place for people to find you?
Oh, they can find me anywhere. I'm the only Robin Farmanfarmaian in the universe. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can find me through my website, or you can just email me at thepatientasceo@gmail.com.
Brilliant. Well, Robyn, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for your time coming on the show.
Thanks, Derek.
Bye-bye. Wow, what an amazing episode with Robyn. The sheer level of commitment, from hiring a $10,000 slide deck designer to practicing 40 times to not leaving the house unless it's going to impact her mission. You guys, this is what a super pro top level individual's efforts look like. We've had an amazing inside window into how she operates. And if you can come even close to this, you're going to get exactly what you want in life, and probably more than you expect. So Robyn is a great model for anyone who wants to become a thought leader. It doesn't have to be in the medical field. It can be in any field. So if you learn something from Robyn, I know she would appreciate hearing from you. And you can tweet at her, you can email her. She's on Instagram, and we'd love your feedback on what you learned from this interview, from this episode. And that's all for today's show. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.